What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So the Conjuring Last Rites teaser trailer previews the terrifying final case for the Warrens. So we've been covering a lot of Conjuring content this past week. Not only did we do a horror news update on the fact that James Wan still has a story in mind, may still possibly, fingers crossed, and that last part's my hopes, is that he does somehow find his way back to this universe to give us the Crooked Man solo film that we didn't get. We were introduced to the character in the Conjuring 2, but ultimately that solo film and that path was taken over and replaced with the Nun character, which rightfully so. Many people love that character, and I think it's a perfect fit for this universe. With that said, though, I still think there is plenty of room for the Crooked Man solo story. And as we talked about as well when we were covering that story, they are moving out after this film. The Conjuring Last Rites releases, that is supposedly wrapping up this phase one, as they're putting it. This is their terms, phase one, and they are possibly gearing up for a phase two with this Conjuring TV series that is supposedly in the works or will be put into the works. And if you're going to be building out a phase two of this universe, I think it's only appropriate to possibly kick it off from a feature film perspective with the Crooked Man solo film. It maybe doesn't need to be the initial jump off point, but maybe it's the second or third film. But I do think there is place and a spot for it, and I don't think it should be completely ignored, especially if you have someone like James Wan who already has a story in mind. We've already been introduced to the character, but it's been at least 10 years since we've seen it. So I think it'd be a perfect opportunity to bring him in. However, with that said, we also covered off on a horror news update that they initially were going to, with the Conjuring Last Rites, they had, whether it was briefly or not briefly, a fleeting thought, they were going to the Conjuring Endgame. They were going to bring in all the demons, all the villains and characters into this final film and have it be almost like a face-off. I am glad that they did not go that route. I think that, in a way, to me, would have been a slap in the face of the fans of this entire universe, those who have been with this universe since day one. And I don't think it's very fitting. Those stories have been told. There's no reason to try to bring all those villains and characters into a final film, especially this being the last film for many of those involved since day one. So again, glad they didn't cover that. But if you want to see, the details for both those stories, again, we did do horror news updates videos on those. I believe they uploaded either yesterday or early today. So check out the playlist. They're going to be there for you to watch. So we are going to jump into the article details for this teaser trailer like we always do. And then we're going to jump right into the trailer itself. So discover why this case was their last. That's the compelling hook for the Conjuring Last Rites, the final film in the franchise starring Vera, Farmiga, and Patrick Wilson. Again, as I mentioned, these two have been a part of it since day one. And the fact that they're closing this book as far as their careers go, I'm glad to see, and I've mentioned this before, whether it's this franchise or other franchises, I'm glad that these two stuck with it for the entire run for their characters. I don't like seeing where you have established characters, they're the staple point, the foundation, especially if you take, for example, like Patrick Wilson. If he would have starred in, let's say, 2 or 3 of the films, and then all of a sudden they bring a completely different actor to replace him, playing the same character across from Vera, I don't think the chemistry would have been the same. It wouldn't have felt the same. And for me as a viewer, it's one of those things where I just can't ignore every time I would watch that particular film or subsequent sequels, thinking, man, that's just not the same person. That's not Patrick. He doesn't carry the character like Patrick. And I'm not saying every time it's a bad change. It's just, for me, it's not a change I like to see. I like to see the original actors and actresses playing out the roles. Now, obviously, if something comes up and real life events happen where, we have those unfortunate events where they just are, from a health perspective, or unfortunately they pass away and they can't play out the role, and the studio wants to keep the franchise going. Yeah, I understand. But if it's coming down to pay disputes or opinions about the character, things of that nature, I think those things can all get worked out for the better of the fans. So Watch the official teaser trailer for Conjuring: The Last Rites below. From New Line Cinema comes the 9th entry in the more than 2 billion theatrical Conjuring universe. The Conjuring: Last Rites, directed by franchise veteran Michael Chavez and produced by franchise architects James Wan and Peter Safran. The Conjuring: Last Rites delivers another thrilling chapter of the iconic Conjuring cinematic universe based on real events. Vera and Patrick reunite for one last case as renowned real-life paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren in a powerful, spine-chilling addition to the global box office breaking franchise. Then we go on to talk about the rest of the casting here, which we're not going to cover. We never do. Michael Chavez directs from a screenplay by Ian Goldberg and Richard Nang, and David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick. Story by David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick and James Wan, based on characters created by Chad Hayes and Carrie W. Hayes. The Case. The famous Smurl family haunting, which refers to claims made by Jack and Janet Smurl of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, who alleged that a demon inhabited their home between 1974 and 1989. And it looks like there's a link here to the Wikipedia page about this case. We're not going to look at that, but it is a link here. If you want to check that out, I will put the link for this article in the description of the video. So if you want to go check that out, you can do so. Normally, I would do that if we had some time to really dive into the details. Normally, I would pull out those details and we would look at that before we get into the trailer. But this teaser trailer isn't a small one. It's about 2.5 minutes. So it's about the full length of a trailer. So I want to be respectful of that fact. And if it was just a teaser, the normal like 30 to 45 seconds, then I would normally go into these details as far as what is really true and what's not true. We have here the list of the previous 8 Conjuring universe films, which we're not going to read through. I'm sure you already know what they are. But as I've mentioned in the previous 2 horror news updates, and I'm going to mention here, is this last line. The Conjuring: Last Rites, the 9th installment, wrapping up Phase 1 and setting the stage for Phase 2 down the road. So again, I'm wondering where are they going to go with a potential Phase 2? And as I've mentioned before in previous videos, and I'll mention here one more time, I think this would be an opportunity for them to actually do the solo Crooked Man solo film, the one that they introduced us to the character in Conjuring 2, but was ultimately down the line replaced by the nun character. So I do think this would be a great opportunity to bring back the Crooked Man, give us that solo film, and then potentially build off on that, because we do know James has already come out and said he has a story in mind. So maybe this is the opportunity for them to do it. All right, we have the trailer here, and do we have a poster? We do have a poster right here. I think this is a great poster. The only thing, as you will probably know by now, that I'm going to say, remove this text. Prepare for the end, remove that. I think this is a great poster. Definitely gives that mimic of a demon, the devil, whatever it is. And you have Vera and Patrick's faces here kind of making up that figure. But I do like just the black, the red hue. It's very simple. And then even down here, I would remove like the date, experience, and IMAX. Just give me the name, The Conjuring: Last Rites. That's all you need. Everything else, get rid of. This text right here, I don't think is necessary. But overall, love the poster. All right, so let's get back to the top of this article. And then let's now jump into the trailer and see what they are going to give us.
Don't touch anything. Everything you see in here is either haunted, cursed, or been used in some sort of ritualistic practice. Nothing's a toy. Not even the toys.
How many cases you guys had?
Cases?
My name is Ed Warren, here with my wife Lorraine.
Maybe 1,000.
Every case is different. Every family's different.
Once we start, there's no going back. Anything can happen. And most likely anything will.
Something's changed. Something's different.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. We cast you out! You won't open! By the power of our Lord Jesus Christ!
I've been waiting so patiently for you.
So I'm all for it. So I've been a Conjuring universe fan since the beginning, and I've enjoyed every film for what it's brought to the table. Whether you watch them as a solo film or watched it as a overall universe, I'm loving and I do think it does play for me. As you all know, I love religious horror films. It's probably it is currently my favorite subgenre. Folklore horror is quickly creeping its way up from second place, getting close to first, because I've found a true love for folklore horror films. So, but the Conjuring universe really, for me, plays into the whole piece around religious horror. So it's not just about like the Exorcist films or that franchise itself or any other films that delve just strictly into exorcisms, right? I do think the Conjuring universe, while it does have exorcisms, it does play into that. It builds on that, and it feels like it's a lot more broader when it comes to religious horror. So obviously I'm going to love this universe in itself, but this feels, based on this teaser, it feels like it's wrapping up the story. We do see, like, for Ed and Lorraine, especially for Vera, if we were to compare her to what she looked like in the earlier films, not just as, I'm not talking about the actress, I'm talking about more the character. It's as if we've gone on this journey and seen them both age as the cases have gone on, as the cases have moved on in time. We're seeing that with them as well. And one thing I did like as this trailer started, we saw immediately, as I referenced and we were going through the article details, the potential of them doing the Crooked Man solo film. We saw on that lamp, the Crooked Man. We saw Annabelle. We saw The Nun. We were seeing all these little callbacks to all the previous films, pretty much setting it up and telling us, hey, this is the final go. This is it. This is going to be the final story we're going to tell for Ed and Lorraine. And if you don't know about these two individuals as far as the real life story, I would highly encourage you to go, if you're interested in that stuff, I'd highly encourage you to go check it out, read into it. It's absolutely crazy. Some of the things that have been documented that they've experienced, that they did experience. I know Ed had passed away quite some time ago. I believe Lorraine just not recently passed away, but she didn't pass away not that long ago. And when hearing that, I do wonder now, though, with them both having passed, who was possibly in charge of their estate? I mean, if they truly have shown, we've seen pictures of the real Annabelle doll. I'm wondering whatever happened to all these artifacts that they actually kept that they necessarily didn't want getting in the hands of other people because of their, being demon possessed or the powers that they potentially held. Whatever happened to those things? I mean, you can't imagine they just showed up into a rummage sale or an estate auction, right? You would think somebody would have been like, yeah, let's not, just put that out there for $1. So anyways, I think this looks like a great first teaser. It did run longer than a teaser, about almost 2.5 minutes, so almost the full length of a official trailer. I do like the time period it's going to be set in. It looks like let me go back to the article here, because this haunting or this story that they're referencing for this last case, I believe, it says the home was inhabited or demon inhabited between 1974 and 1989. But based on the aesthetics, based on the clothing and everything that was shown in this teaser, this looks like it was happening sometime in the 70s. This did not look like it was a story taking place at any point in the 80s, especially the late 80s into you know, the cusp of 1990, just again based on everything looked and felt. So I'm wondering, I mean, if the claim is that the haunting or the demon inhabited from 1974 to 1989, I will be interested to know exactly when this film is transpiring, because if it's happening in the mid 70s, late 70s, and they say, oh, the case is closed, everything's fine, but then the inhabitation of this demon still went on to almost 1990. So obviously something didn't work. The demon was still around, or the claims are the demon was still around. So interested to see exactly what point in time, or if they do any time jumps in this particular film, right, where we're seeing something that's happening in the 70s, and then the Ed and Lorraine come potentially in the mid 80s or late 80s. So interested to see that, but based on what we saw there, it looks like it's definitely happening in the 70s. So that's going to do it for this horror trailer review for The Conjuring Last Rites. The official teaser trailer comes theaters September 5th. We'll be checking this out and then doing a spoiler review. So drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you thought about this first teaser. Let us know what you think about the Conjuring universe and a potential phase 2. Again, if they do it, I want to see the Crooked Man solo film finally happen. And if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we will see you at the next one. Later.